And I had to come up with characters that were no longer stereotypes. In other words, I couldn't depend on gangsters. I had to get something new. And of course, for some reason, I went to the Bible. I came up with Galactus. And there I was in front of this tremendous figure who I knew very well because I've always felt him, and I certainly couldn't treat him in the same way that I would any ordinary mortal. And I remember in my first story, I had to back away from him to resolve that story. And of course, the Silver Surfer is the fallen angel. And when Galactus relegated him to Earth, he stayed on Earth. And that was the beginning of his adventures. And they were figures that had never before been used in comics. They were above mythic figures. And of course, they were the first gods. And I began thinking along those lines. And the new gods evolved from those lines. And I began to ask myself, everybody else had their gods, what are ours? What is the shape of our society in the form of myth and legend? Who are our gods? Who are our evil gods? And who are our good ones? And I tried to resolve them in the new gods. And I came up with some very, very interesting characters and very good sales, which satisfied me immensely. Now, I didn't resolve the questions. I'm a guy who lives with a lot of questions. I say, what's out there? And I try to resolve that. And I never can. I don't think anybody can. Who's got the answers? I sure would like to hear the ultimate one. But I haven't yet. And so I live with a lot of questions. And I find that entertaining. I find that entertaining. And if my life were to end tomorrow, it would be fulfilled in that manner. I would say the questions have been terrific. The comic book medium itself is special. It's something that was, that's a result of evolvement. From what I understand, the editorial comic was first. And then they added a few panels to that, and you had a comic strip. And they added a few pages to that, and you had a comic book. And what we can add to the comic book, we may have to think about that. So I believe that's the interesting part of the entire field, is to say, what is it? Where is it going? How it will evolve? And we experiment with that every day.
Back in 1962, or 61 or 62, around in then, when you and Rosenquist and Lichtenstein all were working very independently of each other, but evolving a same kind of attitude. Does that seem odd to you, that you all began to look at the world in the same way?
I think we just read a lot of comic books. And it just happened to come out then.
Well,
because comic books make things the way they are really today. I mean, the way things happen in New York now, it's like being in a Western movie.
Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. Want you to know, Marvel has always been and always will be a reflection of the world right outside our window. That world may change and evolve, but the one thing that will never change is the way we tell our stories of heroism. Those stories have room for everyone, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or color of their skin. The only things we don't have room for are hatred, intolerance, and bigotry. That man next to you, he's your brother. That woman over there, she's your sister. And that kid walking by, hey, who knows? He may have the proportionate strength of a spider. We're all part of one big family, the human family.
Is this your formula? Like the good guys aren't always good? I didn't know it was a formula at the time. I thought it was just sort of a cute idea to do something different. I would hope that our stories really aren't formularized. What we try to do is make them realistic. In other words, it's not a case of saying, hey, we'll always make the good guys not perfect, but it's a case of saying people aren't perfect. So the good guys won't be always right. The bad guys won't be always bad. We'll even give them some redeeming features. I mean, I'm sure that even you know some people you don't like who aren't total monsters, who have some virtues. And as I say, it was the ridiculous notion was, let's try to inject realism in comic books. And somehow the juxtaposition of the fantasy and the realism seems to have struck a chord.